I don't know what this conversation's going to be about necessarily, but I have to start. I feel like there's something to that, just to let the flow flow. Yeah. So many fears have been surfacing and doing their best to stop me from sharing anything and really subtle ways convincing me as to why that's the best thing is to just not share, not do anything. And the mind is tricking me, or the ego, right, is tricking me through just things that make a lot of sense, you know? There's so much noise in the world, and there is. I'm very aware that there is, and I don't want to add noise or be harmful to anybody through just confusion or ignorance. And it's like my ego or this mind kind of knows that. And subtly, it will just convince me not to share things, not to create. I do create and I do intend to share it. It will pick it apart, before it ever has a chance to like be released, to be out into the world. The things that aren't practical, that are more creative. And not to say practical things like practices and meditations aren't creative, because they are, but these things that feel more intuitive are more free flowing and spontaneous. And at the same time, I just always have to point out, like, practice and practical things do not have to be rigid, formal, is that a word? Things. There's room for everything. But my point is that I'm just noticing that and I'm pointing it out. I didn't even know that I would say that when I turned this on. I had nothing to say when I turned this on. All I had an awareness of was energy. Like, in my mind, no thoughts about what was going to come through. But then that just came through, and that makes all the sense. It's so interesting how when you don't, like, if I didn't just say that, if it didn't just come through so clearly, I would have been stuck in a loop of doubt and a loop of like worrying and ruminating, even when I'm like actively not ruminating. I'm not sitting there thinking about it, but it's like this ongoing thing somehow energetically in my mind. Just because I'm not thinking about it and I'm not focused on it, there's still this unresolved energy loop because the thing that I made, I haven't shared and I'm afraid to share it, or I think that I shouldn't share it, or all of this stuff. Wow. Wow, that's so frustrating. And, anyways, I think it's really good to point out it's like the subtlety of your mind or of the ego or of the personality that you are, that I am. It seems like it can find these really subtle ways and subtle loopholes to keep you small, to keep you not even small, but keep you in that shape that you already are, in that personality, in that identity. That's what that is. That's the identity. The identity is the shape that you're in. And that shape itself will do whatever it can to make sure that you don't grow out of it. When you start to do things that step outside of that, like the circumference or the edge of that shape, all of these fears will just meet you right there at that surface wall. It's as if those fears just start popping up out of nowhere, but they're always there. It's just you never did anything that challenged this shape in this kind of metaphor that I'm using in such a way where it's like, whoa there, like, we're going to be changing. If you do that, you can no longer be this shape. And that's where I'm at. So many like reasons as to why it's a great idea not to do something that I want to do. Not even like I want to do it, that I don't want to do it. Actually, I feel like there's what else to do. I don't know. Like, what can I offer? This is my practice. Of course, I still have my asana practice and I do plan to share more of those soon. It's like life is allowing me to do things. Life is allowing things to happen. I am not in control of what happens. Does that make sense? Do you feel like that? Because I feel like that's a thing. And before, I would make practices and not feel like I loved the environment or the conditions. but I made the very best out of them. That gave me a sense of feeling something good. I don't know. But now I feel like I don't feel the desire so much to share the yoga, the asana, but I do on a really subtle, deeper level. And so it's so deep and so there that I feel like I don't need to do it, how I felt before, where I felt like I just have to do this. I just need to do this. Now I feel like I know that I'm doing this always. And when the life is allowing me to do them in a more organic way with the right kind of environment that I want to offer others, I'll return to that in a more powerful way for sure. Because I really wanted to say this too. Like, I remember when I was advancing and deepening my practice, very much appreciated my teachers and the teachers that I was able to kind of come into connection with on one level in one realm or another. I appreciated their environments. It it made all the difference. The teacher makes all the difference, but so does the environment they cultivate and the space that they hold for others. I think that's very important for me to recognize and to share with others too. It's one part, it's like one thing. I was going to say it's one thing to push through the fears or the limitations or the perception of limitations in the external environment or in the conditions. But it's another thing, kind of trust that really what I was going to say it's one thing to do that, but then I said it's one part. And that's what I mean. It's like that's one part of the process. The next part of this process feels like honoring the thing, the conditions or the environment, honoring life and like allowing life to happen as it's happening regardless of if you allow it or not. Like let the flow flow, let life flow, don't resist it. Actually sets you up to be in alignment much more. Obviously you're in alignment much more easily when you're not resisting or rejecting what is or trying to kind of exert energy around what is. And here's the difference: there's a point in your evolution as growing, maturing spiritually, whatever, where you do have to fight through the resistance, because sometimes that resistance coming from within you, right? And you can't just give into it. Like we would say that's inertia, like Thomas from the three gunas. Or the other part, sitting neutrally, comfortably in this place of understanding like where my growth actually lies, and that's no longer what it was doing before. There was a point to it before, but now it's like surrendering and then just allowing things to happen, allowing life to be what it is, and trusting that when the right things align, they align. I don't have to worry about that, wonder about that. It comes into an alignment all by itself. I don't have to force that. And so that's what I'm really trying to say and how to really articulate, because that's been in me for a while, this feeling of trusting this place of neutrality, despite how it looks on the surface, despite how the ego has felt about it, through the very process of just kind of sitting in it. It's almost like it bursts into flames and to ash, and the desire is completely gone now to continue to share and kind of aspire as to what I was doing before on YouTube. I'm totally open to not using YouTube as well. I'm totally open to doing nothing online. I'm totally open to life and to my being, to where it guides me. I know there's more that wants to come through about sharing and vulnerability and ego and identity and like using I and me and mine. It's actually really good that it's coming through, because I'm noticing things like in the first one I shared where I say, I earned wisdom. Who earned wisdom? Hmm? After I let it like go and put it out there, I picked up immediately that part. Who earned wisdom? There's no like, like that's not you. It just sounded very sticky after I listened. Something in that too. It's like powerful.